China didn't defeat America, it built its own throne. When Donald Trump visited China, President Xi Jinping personally welcomed him at the airport. In diplomacy, this gesture means power, respect, and confidence. China has reached a stage where it no longer follows global rules made by others. Instead, it has become strong enough to impose its own culture, its own system, and its own way of doing things. Today, China is not trying to destroy America. China is fighting for something bigger, sovereignty. It wants its own seat at the top of the world order. And honestly, China's chair is becoming heavier than America's. Welcome to the age of balance between two superpowers. The United States still has the strongest military in history. The dollar is still the world's main currency. Washington still controls a large part of global politics. But on the other side of the planet, another giant has risen. China did not spend decades trying to bring America down. Instead, it focused on building itself up, and that difference changes everything. China's rise did not happen through wars or invasions. It happened through planning, patience, industry, and long-term strategy. To understand this story, we need to go back to 1978. At that time, China was extremely poor. The average income was less than $180 a year. Half the population lived under the poverty line. Then a leader named Deng Xiaoping changed the country forever. He famously said, "It doesn't matter whether the cat is black or white as long as it catches mice." In simple words, forget ideology. Focus on results. China opened its economy while keeping strong state control, and then it started working silently. For 40 years, China's economy grew at an average rate close to 9.5% every year. That number may sound small, but over decades it created an economic miracle. Today, according to international economic reports, China has become the largest economy in the world by purchasing power. Its economy is now much larger than America's in total production capacity. And the most important question is, how did China do this? Not through oil, not through colonialism, not through military occupation. China relied on three things: work, planning, and long-term vision. While many countries think about the next election, China plans for the next 20 years. Right now, Beijing is already planning for 2049, the 100th anniversary of modern China. And the results are massive. China produces around 30% of the world's industrial output. That means 1 out of every 3 manufactured products on Earth is made in China. China no longer produces only cheap clothes and plastic products. Now it builds advanced electronics, electric vehicles, high-speed trains, warships, and even passenger airplanes, competing with Boeing and Airbus. Despite American sanctions, companies like Huawei continued growing, and perhaps the biggest battlefield of the future is clean energy. The 20th century belonged to oil. The 21st century belongs to batteries, electric cars, and technology. China understood this very early. Today, China dominates the global electric vehicle industry. Chinese company BYD recently sold far more electric cars than Tesla, and Chinese companies can develop new cars almost twice as fast as Western manufacturers. Speed itself has become a strategic weapon. Infrastructure is another example. China built more than 45,000 kilometers of high-speed railways. The United States still has no true national high-speed rail network. During the COVID pandemic, China built a massive hospital in Wuhan in only 10 days. That showed the world a completely different model of governance, a system capable of moving incredibly fast. This is why many developing countries admire the Chinese model, not necessarily because of politics, but because they see real results. Then came one of China's biggest global projects, the Belt and Road Initiative. Launched in 2013, it connected China economically to countries across Asia, Africa, Europe, and Latin America. More than 150 countries joined the initiative. China invested huge amounts into roads, ports, railways, and infrastructure projects worldwide. While America often exports military influence and sanctions, China exports money, engineers, and construction projects. And quietly, this built influence across the world. But the real question is, has China become the second global pole? The answer is yes, not because it replaced America, but because it created an alternative system. China built its own financial institutions, its own trade networks, its own technology ecosystem. Apps like WeChat, companies like Huawei and Alibaba, and even China's own space station all show one thing: China no longer depends on the Western system. However, America still leads in very important areas. The U.S. military remains the strongest on Earth. America spends far more on defense than China. The dollar is still the backbone of global finance. Silicon Valley still
attracts the world's greatest innovators. And geographically, America has safer neighbors and stronger military alliances. China still faces tensions with countries like Japan, India, Vietnam, and the Philippines. So no, China has not defeated America. And maybe it never wanted to, because destroying America would create global chaos, and China depends heavily on global stability for trade and growth. Instead, China chose something smarter. It refused to remain a follower. It built its own path, its own influence, its own version of global leadership. And in international politics, the country that can offer the world an alternative is a true superpower. The 21st century will not belong entirely to America, and it will not belong entirely to China either. It will be a century of balance, a century of competition, coexistence, and two massive powers shaping the future together, because both countries understand one terrifying truth. A direct war between them would destroy the winner before the loser, and that is why China's greatest victory was not defeating America. China's greatest victory was becoming China.